All right, let's jump right in. We're going to get into a really cool puzzle today. How can something as totally wild and unpredictable as randomness lead to results that are, well, almost perfectly certain? It sounds kind of like magic, but it's actually one of the most powerful ideas out there.
I mean, seriously, think about it. How does a casino know with mathematical certainty that it's going to make a profit in the long run? How can an insurance company figure out exactly what to charge you for things that seem completely random, like a car accident? That's the big question we're going to unpack right here.
Okay, so first things first. Our story starts with a problem. And the problem really, it all boils down to this. Individual random events, they're just completely unreliable. Let's make this real. Imagine you're in Kenya, and you ask one single voter who they're for. Do you have any idea how the election's going to turn out? No way, of course not. That one answer is what we call noise. It's just a random blip that tells you absolutely nothing about the big picture. That person could be a total outlier. It's not just unhelpful, it's misleading.
And that leads us to this super important idea. A little mantra you gotta remember through all of this. Small samples lie. They're noisy, they're chaotic, and you just can't trust them to tell you the truth.
So, if small samples are the villain of our story, then what's the hero? Well, this is where it gets really cool. There's this incredibly powerful, super elegant principle that comes in and solves the whole mystery for us.
And here it is, the law of large numbers. It sounds kind of academic, but the idea is actually super simple, and honestly, it's mind-blowing. If you do something just a handful of times, the results are a mess. But if you do it thousands or even millions of times, something amazing happens. A really clear pattern starts to show up. All that randomness, it just cancels itself out.
And this, right here, is the perfect way to picture it. Let's say you want to know how salty the ocean is. If you take just one spoonful, it might be extra salty, might be less salty. Who knows? That's just noise. But what if you take 1,000 spoonfuls and pour them all together into one big bucket? Well, now you've got it. That bucket is going to taste exactly like the true average saltiness of the whole ocean. The random highs and lows just balance each other out. That's the law, right there, in a bucket.
So how does this actually work? Like, how does just doing something over and over and over again manage to pull a perfect clean signal out of all that random, messy noise?
Let's use the most classic example of all, a simple coin toss. We all know, deep down, that a fair coin has a 50% chance of landing on heads. That 50%, that's the true underlying value. It's the signal we're trying to find. But check out what happens when we only flip it a few times. You could totally get 3 heads in a row. That's 100% heads. Or maybe just 1 head out of 3, which is only 33%. These results are all over the map. They look nothing like the 50% we're expecting. This is pure noise. Remember? Small samples lie.
Okay, so what happens if we don't stop? What if we just keep flipping that coin all the way to 1,000 times?
And boom, this is where the magic happens. After 1,000 flips, there's no way you're going to get 100% heads. You're not going to get 33%. You're going to get something incredibly close to 500 heads, right around 50%. Why? Because all those weird streaks of heads get balanced out by streaks of tails. The chaos just fades away, and the real, true probability shines through.
So here's the bottom line. The law of large numbers helps us separate the noise from the signal. Think of it like this. Today's weather, that's noise. It could be a freak heat wave or a sudden storm. But the weather data over the last 30 years, that tells you the climate. That's the signal.
And that brings us to the big payoff, the other half of our mantra. If small samples lie, then large samples, they reveal. They reveal the truth that was hiding under all that noise the whole time.
Okay, so this isn't just some cool theory for coin flips. This principle is literally a fundamental force that shapes our entire modern world in ways you probably don't even realize. This thing is at work everywhere. A casino might lose a single hand of blackjack, sure, but over millions of hands, their tiny statistical advantage guarantees they'll make a profit. An insurance company has no clue if your house is going to have a fire, but across millions of homes, they know almost exactly how many claims there will be. It's how polls work, it's how we test new medicines, it's how we find trends in the stock market. It's the secret sauce that turns total chaos into predictable, manageable risk.
Now, we have to talk about a super common trap people fall into when they think about this law. It's really important to get this straight.
You've heard this, right? Maybe you've even felt it yourself at a roulette table. If it lands on red 5 times in a row, you think, black has got to be next, it's due. Well, that feeling has a name. It's the gambler's fallacy, and it's a total misunderstanding of how all this works.
Here is the absolute key difference. The gambler's fallacy imagines the universe is keeping score, that the coin somehow remembers it landed on heads and now owes you a tails. But the coin has no memory. The law of large numbers tells us the odds for the next flip are always 50-50, no matter what happened before. The average only gets back to 50% because that 5-head streak gets drowned out and diluted by thousands and thousands of future flips. It doesn't correct itself on the next turn.
So let's tie all of this together. Let's bring it all home with one last analogy that I think just nails it.
Think about a massive orchestra. If you could magically listen to just one single violin, you might hear a note that's a tiny bit sharp or a little flat. On its own, it might even sound like a mistake, like random noise.
But when you hear all 100 instruments playing together, all those little individual imperfections, all that noise, it just blends together and disappears. And what you're left with is the symphony, the pure signal, the actual music. That is the predictable power of randomness.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. Whether you're looking at your investment portfolio, your progress at the gym, or trying to learn a new skill, the day-to-day ups and downs are just noise. The real progress, the true signal, only shows up when you look at the big picture over the long run. So my question to you is, where in your life can you start looking past the noise to find the real music?